Welcome back to our study on the book of Romans. This is the Romans Education Part 7, and this is session 16. I ought to make a mark here. I usually make a mark where the session ends, and I guess I need to do that. Okay. Talking to you at the end of the last session when we were at Psalm 14, that it is building on Psalm 11, giving you some additional information. That's why we went to those two. Now look, it's important to keep in mind that what we're looking at is the backdrop, the backstory to the dispensation of grace. What was happening when God brought in the dispensation of grace. And now that the dispensation of grace is here, the ungodliness of the world hasn't stopped. God didn't interrupt ungodliness when He interrupted the program with Israel. The wicked are still in the world, and they're still willing and able to work. The policy of evil is still at work in the world. All the workers of iniquity didn't take a vacation. All of those things are still there. We will encounter those when the time comes. Just because we haven't doesn't mean that they're not here. And so, with that in mind, let me turn you to Isaiah 65. And we're going to continue to look at this issue that is going to produce the same attitude in us that is in our Father. Isaiah 65:1. I am sought of them that asked not for me. I am found of them that sought me not. I said, behold me, unto a nation that was not called by my name. I have spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people, which walketh in a way that was not good after their own thoughts. Now, let me just show you this. I just had that marker. I don't know what I did with it. I guess I'm eating these markers. The particular time that's being talked about here is, remember we talked about this being the climactic stage, the fourth and fifth installments of the fifth course of punishment. But when he talks about this, behold me, I've spread out my hands all the day to a rebellious people. He is talking about this time before the cross, but especially he is talking about Acts 1 through 8, this extension of mercy. That is the predominant point that's being talked about there. Now, why is that even important? Because this is the passage Paul quotes when he talks to us about the dispensational change in Romans chapter 10. Now, I'm just going to take you over there and just show you the verse. I know we went through Romans 10 already, but you understand that this is where Paul is telling us about exactly when God interrupted His program with Israel. He didn't interrupt it when John the Baptist came. He didn't interrupt it when Jesus was in His earthly ministry. He didn't interrupt it at the cross. He didn't interrupt it at the extension of mercy. He interrupted it after that year's extension of mercy. And he talks to us about this issue. But look, when you look at this, look what he says. I spread out my hands all the day unto a rebellious people, walketh in a way that's not good after their own thoughts. And I sought them that asked not for me, and found of them that sought me not, to a nation not called by my name. Just all that's in your mind. Now look in Romans 10:19. But I say, did not Israel know? First Moses saith, I will provoke you to jealousy by them that are no people, and by a foolish nation I'll anger you. But Isaiah, now that is the New Testament rendering for Isaiah. That comes out of the Greek. Isaiah was very bold and saith, I was found of them that sought me not. I was made manifest unto them that asked not after me. But to Israel he saith, all day long have I stretched forth my hands unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. And so Paul quotes that there in Romans 10, right out of Isaiah 65. And so I will take you back over to Isaiah 65, and I want to show you that thing I mentioned to you earlier. I said we'd get to the religious nature of this. He says, a people that provoketh me to anger continually to my face, that sacrificeth in gardens, and burneth incense upon altars of brick, which remain among the graves, and lodge in the monuments, which eat swine's flesh, and broth of abominable things is in their vessels, which say, and look, there's that statement that they're going to say. Now, remember, before he makes the statement, he's described how they are, and he says, and these are the people that say, stand by thyself, come not near to me, for I am holier than thou. That's the attitude of these folks. They believe they're righteous. They believe they're holy. And God is up here saying, they provoke me to anger continually. Everything they have done has been wrong. And then he goes through those religious aspects of sacrificing and altars and burning incense and all of that kind of issue. And when they get down here and make that statement, God says, these are a smoke in my nose, a fire that burneth all the day. I want to highlight that verse for us because when you ever been standing around a campfire? Here's how I've learned. If you ever roast hot dogs around a campfire, whichever side I am standing on, the wind will shift and blow the smoke on me. And if I go around to the other side, it will turn and go the other way. This is wild. Smoke chases beauty. I like that. Okay. In fact, that's got to be in the Bible somewhere. All right. Okay. So, well, it definitely chases me. And here's the thing. If there's very much smoke, when there's a fire, you may die of smoke inhalation before you ever die in the fire. And if you have smoke continually in your nose, if you're going to fix that, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to move away from the smoke if you can, or you're going to put that fire out that's causing the smoke. But you have to, those are the things that are going to be done. And when God says, you want me to tell you how I think about these people? They're like a smoke in my nostrils. Now, just describing it the way that we have, what is God saying when He says, they're a smoke in my nostrils? What is He saying? Irritated, I've got to do something. I am not going, because you know what? I'm not going to continue to do this. And He says, they're a smoke in my nose, a fire that burneth all the day. And so, there's going to come a limit to how He's going to deal with them. And so now let's take this up in the next verse here. Verse 6. Behold, it is written before me, I will not keep silence, but will recompense, even recompense into their bosom, your iniquities, and the iniquities of your fathers together, saith the Lord, which have burned incense upon the mountains, and blasphemed me upon the hills. Therefore will I measure their former work into their bosom. Oh, I should have ended that right there. I'm sorry. I'm sorry?
Is that judge in their heart, measuring their former work in their bosom?
He's saying, I'm going to take the things that you have done, and what I'm going to do to you is going to be commensurate with what you have done. And there is something in their heart that they feel about that, and then there's something they have done about that. And when when you read this, isn't it hard for you to comprehend how they can say, stand by thyself, don't come near unto me, for I am holier than thou. And they're the ones that are blaspheming God. Now you understand this is going, and so we're looking at things that have taken place and things that will take place. And Bob asked me a question at the break, and I want to bring that up now. One of the reasons that this is all packed into that first phrase of Romans 13:12, understanding all of this is packed into that, is so when God unleashes His wrath upon the apostate Israel and the world, we won't be standing there looking at that and saying, well, I mean, I know they're bad, but do you really have to go that far with it? There is, okay, Bertha's there, all right. She's oh, it hurt their feelings, you know. This is so that God is justified in what He's doing. He's explaining why He feels about it the way He does. And this is the unfolding picture of that. And this is the disgust that He has for it and why He has it that way. Now let me take you to Proverbs. Proverbs 6:12. I know these words are used here in a specific way. We don't always think of them this way, but I'm just going to read it the way it is. A naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. He winketh with his eyes. He speaketh with his feet. He teacheth with his fingers. Frowardness is in his heart. He deviseth mischief continually. He soweth discord. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly. Suddenly shall he be broken without remedy. Now the context of this is going to be once God has resumed His program with Israel and they are in the Lord's day of wrath. In other words, the tribulation is underway here. And these are, and when He says, a naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth, again, don't think about just people who are born with a sin nature, who do some things that are sin. But these are those wicked that are at the core. They're the furnace that's actually powering what Satan is doing to bring about this ungodliness in the world. And they're the ones that are openly engaged in that. And that's why he says, verse 15 is talking about that wrath that's going to come. Therefore shall his calamity come suddenly, and suddenly he'll be broken without remedy. And so, as they're getting ready to do this, there's some tactics that they're going to employ to be up. Now, again, I know this is talking about the remnant, but this is a parallel issue again. Just as in the assemblies of the believing remnant, there are going to be those who come in there and try to sow this discord and sow this false doctrine. And they're going to do this behind the scenes, and they're going to be very subtle about it. You understand that part of what's going on there when they come in there is they're going to be, and I'm going to give you several descriptive terms here. They're going to be wolves in sheep's clothing. And we all know what that means. We talked about that last week. Wolves in sheep's clothing. But there's another comparative phrase to that. And Jesus warns about this. By the way, when He's preparing the remnant, they're not being told anything about the dispensation of grace intervening. They're looking at just going right on into that. And so when He warns them, look at Matthew chapter 13, verse 24. Another parable put He forth unto them, saying, The kingdom of heaven is like unto a man which sowed good seed in his field. But while men slept, his enemy came and sowed tares among the wheat and went his way. If we continue to read through the parable, you'd see that the workers come and say, Do you want us to dig out the tares? And He says, No, don't dig out the tares lest you uproot the wheat also. And they said, Well, where did these tares come from? And He says, An enemy has put the tares among the wheat. Now, yes, this is for the remnant. You're going to find out there's a parallel issue in which, in a sonship assembly that gets to the place where it's beginning to make an impact in Satan's realm, for lack of a better term, to just use the terminology that we're talking about here, tares are going to get sown among the wheat. I'm looking at the wheat. Well, except for Bob. I'm looking at the wheat. But you understand, tares will come in, and you know what? They'll look just like. You won't be able. Now, you just got told, I didn't call it to your attention yet, we just got told the only way you will tell the difference between the wheat or the tares, or the wolves that are in sheep's clothing and the sheep. There's only one way to tell. You're not going to be able to look at them and tell. Nothing about their appearance is going to give that away. But it's going to be what comes out of their mouth. Do you remember back there where he says, a naughty person, a wicked man, walketh with a froward mouth. He's going to, and he's not going to do it openly. He's going to do it behind the scenes. You'll walk out into that, listen to me, you'll walk out into that parking lot one day and someone is going to kind of sidle up and make a statement about what this assembly is involved in and try to produce some doubt or try to destroy the doctrine or to undermine it. That's a better word, to undermine that doctrine. And it's just going to be very casual and off the cuff. And when that happens, you've got to remember that the only way you'll know the wolves from the sheep or the tares from the wheat is by what comes out of their mouth. And they're going to be clever about it. Now, we'll get there one day, and when we do, we have to be prepared for that. And by the way, it'll be the enemy that planted that tare. So, Proverbs 6, let's go back and let's go a little further. I'm sorry, I had you Matthew. Oh, I did the Matthew deal, didn't I? Proverbs 6. But by the way, this is really great. Not that we're talking about these issues, I'm sorry. I didn't mean there's 6 things God hates. This is really great. I meant we're about to see something really great about this. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto Him. A proud look, a lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among the brethren. Now, in the old days, we read this, and we just kind of thought of those things generically, right? He that soweth discord among the brethren is somebody that just, they kind of fostered this ill feelings that somebody had for somebody else in the group over something really of no consequence, or a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations. By the way, did you notice feet that be swift in running to mischief? Do you remember that word mischief? We just picked that up just a couple of passages back. These are all words that when he says a lying tongue, and down in verse 19, a false witness that speaketh lies. Look, I'm going to explain this way. This is the best way I know to do this. Because I know what you don't want me to do. You don't want me to take you back to the book of Proverbs and let's spend the next 12 weeks looking at the details of this. So I'm just going to tell it to you. We see it, and by the way, this is the really neat thing about this. You see those things that are listed right there? Those are the very things that Jesus undoes as He teaches through the gospel accounts. He takes those issues and He deals with those issues as He teaches the doctrine to the remnant. So when He says these are things that are an abomination to God, that God hates, those are the very things that Jesus' doctrine is going to correct. Now and when you see that begin to unfold in that way in the gospel accounts, that's a pretty amazing thing to look at. But again, we don't want to talk about that in any detail. But here's what this is about. This is still about that the guys that are shoveling the coal to the locomotive engine. It's about those guys. All right, let me I'll do this one. I'll pick on Audie because he needs it. Let's suppose Audie doesn't want to go to work one day. Kim's wearing him out over honeydews, and so he's got to get some of these done. So he's going to take a day and do that. And so he calls in and he goes, I'm not feeling good today. And they go, okay, we'll take a sick day. But he's not sick, he's just taking care of stuff. Now, I'm not saying Audie did that, I'm just using him for an illustration. However, anybody sees that and they go, oh, a lying tongue. All right. And that is not what this is talking about. This is a particular lie. that is being told. This false witness down here in verse 19 that speaketh lies is not somebody that just goes, yeah, Audie was sick today. This is Kim, now she's going to bear witness to it. Oh yeah, he was sick. He went, he's coughing around. That's not what this is talking about. This is talking about something specific to what is being done to undermine the remnant and their resistance to Satan's policy of evil. I want to talk about the details of this a little bit, because what Satan is doing is he has produced this night because of his works of darkness. Works of darkness produce a night. That's not hard to follow. The night is getting darker and darker and darker. And the works of darkness are continuing to work during the dispensation of grace. They'll go right on working as we get back into the resumption of Israel's program. And God is going to have to dispel that darkness with His day. But what I'm getting at is, it is these that are cooperating with that policy of evil that are actually telling a particular kind of lie and bearing false witness to a particular kind of lie that's being referred to here. Let me take you over to Psalm 119 and let me show you, because I have more to say about this. He says, I have not departed from thy judgments, for thou hast taught me. Now, yeah, this is Israel and the remnant. But you understand when he says, you have taught me, I just wanted to bring that out, because if you're being taught, then it's an education, isn't it? And so when we use that term, these kinds of things are tucked away all through, not just Israel's program, but even Paul's epistles that talk about this really is an education. Verse 103. How sweet are thy words unto my taste, yea, sweeter than honey to my mouth. Through thy precepts I get understanding. Therefore, I hate every false way. And he's not just talking about any old false way in general. He's talking about something very specific to what Satan is orchestrating and promoting to produce this ungodly world and this night of darkness. Psalm 119 now, by the way, do you see what's happened here? This is something the remnant will say. They will say this. When they say that, what? Okay, look, I think I'm losing you. Just put on the brakes for a second, just a second. When you see the remnant say that, what do you know has taken place? Even if you don't know what the false way is, you still know something has taken place. It's the parallel issue with you. What is that issue? It's got to happen with them. It's got to happen with you. And when you see the remnant, okay, do you remember, let me just take you back to the end of last session where the Lord said, those wicked and those that love violence, my soul hateth. You remember that? And now you have the remnant saying, I hate every false way. What's happened? They got the same attitude their father had generated in them. That's exactly what's got to take place with us. We've got to have that attitude. Now, the rest of Psalm 119. I hate vain thoughts. When he says vain thoughts, he's not just talking about any old empty thoughts that are just random out there. He's got something particular in mind. And by the way, if we were doing all the detail on this, which I am going to point this out to you, you'd see what this was about. Because I hate vain thoughts, but thy law do I love. Thou art my hiding place and my shield. I hope in thy word. Depart from me, ye evildoers. That's not just anybody in general that he wants to call an evildoer. That's these guys that are stoking the fires of ungodliness here. For I will keep the commandments of my God. Now, when I was talking about the lying back there and the false witness and all that kind of business, you understand that when he's talking about that back here, he's looking at a lie that is being propagated out here. That the remnant, they hope the remnant is going to buy into. because they're going to undo all of the doctrine for them. That is going to shed light. In fact, let me just take you one more to Psalm 119. Look at verse 126. It is time for thee, Lord, to work, for they have made void thy law. I don't want to get caught up too much in that, but I just want to say it's going to come to a point where they will have achieved that goal. They will have made void the law. It'll be totally null. And then it says, therefore I love thy commandments above gold, yea, above fine gold. Therefore I esteem all thy precepts concerning all things to be right. And I hate every false way. There it is again. What is that false way? It is the way that is contrary to what the Father has given in His Word. And so He's saying, I hate that. Now one more in Psalm 119. This is right at the end of the Psalm. Princes have persecuted me without a cause, but my heart standeth in awe of thy word. I rejoice at thy word as one that findeth great spoil. I hate and abhor lying. And I'm going to give, but thy law do I love. He's not just saying, I just hate it when people lie to me. You know, we asked somebody to do something, they said they couldn't do it. I know they were lying about it. That's not what he's talking about. He's not talking about Audie getting out of work because, you know, he's got honeydews. He's not talking about that. I sure hope your boss isn't listening to this session right here, because he's going to know if you've missed any days lately, this is, okay. So,
Is man's corruption of the Word?
it is a corruption of the Word. It is, but it's going to be a lie about the remnant. Let me take you back just mentally. Remember when they were making all those disparaging comments? Oh, flee as a bird to your mountain. And now they're going to start making all of these comments to discredit the remnant and to make them look uncredible and all. Well, he says there are lies that are going to be told. And he says, I hate and abhor lying. That's the lying that he's talking about. It's not just general people not telling the truth. It's something very specific that is meant to tear the feet out from under the remnant and to cause their confidence in the doctrine to collapse. And when Karen says they're tearing away at the truth of the Word, that's exactly what they're doing. In fact, the Word is what? Thy Word is what? Just fill in the blank. A lamp and a light. And you know what a lamp and a light does? It dispels darkness. And so when I didn't take you to that one, but I'm talking about it. But when he said, thy word is a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path, he's talking about this is dispelling the darkness. So there's got to be a lie that gets told to discredit the word, to discredit the member of the remnant, and listen, and to discredit God Himself. Remember the words of 2 Peter, denying the Lord that bought them. And so this whole lot, by the way, let me just show you these. This is going to give you real insight about over in the book of Revelation. Look at Revelation 22, verse 14. Blessed are they that do His commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life and may enter in through the gates into the city. For without are dogs and sorcerers and whoremongers and murderers and idolaters, and whosoever loveth and maketh a lie. That's the lie that's being talked about back there in those passages we were just looking at in Psalm 119. See, when you look at, there's another passage everybody always quotes, and they quote it. You know what? If they ever think somebody hasn't told the truth about something, they may say it jokingly, but here's what comes up. Revelation 21:7. And he that overcometh shall inherit all things, and I will be his God, and he'll be my son. But the fearful and unbelieving and the abominable and murderers and whoremongers and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So here's how they encapsulate that. Well, you know where liars go. That's what they say. That's not talking about somebody that, you know what, they lied about something, okay. But that's not what that verse is referring to. That verse is referring to the ones who are stoking the fires of ungodliness, who have publicly pronounce themselves to be opposed to God, who have gone on record as being opposed to His Word, who are promoting the extreme ungodliness of Satan's policy of evil and align themselves with him. They have not done this by accident. They do not do it unknowingly, but they will do it knowingly. Those are the ones that love and make a lie. Those are the liars who will spend... Because if you don't understand what that is, you know what that makes you say? That makes you say, well, if you tell a lie, you're going to hell. Sure. When it's talking about those liars, look, it's everything in that list. And the abominable. Do you remember what God talked about when He talked about that their abominations angered Him continually? And murderers. Who are they murdering? They're not just murderers in general. I'm not saying murder is not bad. Of course it is. But He's not just talking about a guy that committed murder. What murders is He talking about? Yeah, the killing of the believing remnant. And whoremongers. There's something to do with the Baal worship that's going to come back up that involves that very issue. And by the way, and that's what's being talked about when He talks about the 144,000 who have not known women. He's talking about they have never participated in that Baal worship system that Revelation talks about. And when He talks and sorcerers and idolaters and all liars, He's talking about this is all the activities that group of the wicked, the workers of iniquity, are going to be involved in over there. And they're going to bring this all to a crescendo. And God says, you know what? They're all going to have their part in the lake of fire. That's what's waiting for them. But before that, they're going to have the day of wrath. And I'm going to pour my anger out without mixture. So when you see those things that are sitting over there at the end of Revelation, those are not just general statements any more than those things that we were looking at earlier in the Psalms were just general statements. Those are things that have something very specific in mind. And the hatred that the Lord has for them is because of that issue, nothing else. He doesn't hate them because of their social status. He doesn't hate them because of their politics. He doesn't hate them because of their views on education. He doesn't hate them because of their income. He hates them because they are diametrically opposed to what God is doing in this world. And they're doing everything they can to help Satan hold on to what is happening. And I've said all of this for a lot of reasons, but one of those is so that you might understand that the statement that is also made in Revelation is absolutely true. And here it is. Oh man, why did I'm sorry, I got to give you this before I read that one. I just skipped it, so let me give it to you. How precious also are thy thoughts unto me, O God. How great is the sum of them. If I should count them, they are more in number than the sand. When I awake, I am still with thee. Surely thou wilt slay the wicked. We're familiar with that term by now. O God, depart from me therefore, ye bloody men. For they speak against thee wickedly, and thine enemies take thy name in vain. Do not I hate them, O Lord, that hate thee? And am not I grieved with those that rise up against thee? I hate them with perfect hatred. I count them mine enemies. And I've got two things in that pink color up there because that's the reason he hates them. He doesn't, look, the remnant is being persecuted, yes, but they're not hating these people because they're persecuting them. They don't hate them because they've robbed them of everything they own. They hate them for the same reason the Father hates them. He says, they're thine enemies, therefore I count them as my enemies. There's what God feels about that now being put into the remnant. I feel about this the way you do. And that is pretty stern language, by the way. That would shock most churches to actually hear a sermon on that kind of language. But look, can I just say it this way? And I'm telling you the truth. I promise you. Being conformed to the image of God's Son not only involves having His love in your life, it also involves hating some things that are in this world. God hates it. His Son hates it. And if you're going to be conformed to the image of His Son, you are going to hate it. Now, don't fear. I'm not going to publish a list of all the things you need to hate so you can all line up with what I think. That's not important. But you understand the ungodliness the policy of evil is promoting. We have to really feel about that the way the Lord does. Those workers of iniquity that are trying to be God's enemies. Would we want them to be saved? Of course we would. Let me ask you a question. Would God forgive any of them that repented and believed on His Son? He would. I'm not saying, but you know what? There is something in Hebrews about this group. Look, I'll say it to you this way and then we'll read the last verse. Over there in Hebrews 6, there's a deal where he talks about that it's impossible to renew them again unto repentance, seeing they crucified themselves the Son of God afresh and put Him to an open shame. And when they talk about that issue over there in Hebrews, you know what's happening? Is that these people have so declared themselves to be enemies of God, and they have, to their maximum amount, aligned themselves with Satan's policy of evil and with the Antichrist, that they have of their own choosing put themselves in what is like a point of no return. They have sold themselves out completely to the Antichrist and what Satan is doing in this world. And members of apostate Israel will be a part of that, just like the children of men, part of them will be a part of that. And they're not going to come back to God. If they did, would God forgive them? Yes. But if they do not, God says, I have a view of them, and my soul abhors them. My soul hates them. If this is what they're going to do, and this is what they're going to be, then they're going to be the recipients of my wrath. And that's how He feels about it. And I'm going to tell you how I feel about it. When this assembly gets to the place that we undergo a direct attack from the policy of evil, I will despise that attack and those that do it. If they were to come to Christ, would I be glad? I would love it. Because I would love nothing better than to take Satan's main guys and have them be like Paul, suddenly start pitching for the other team. Now that would be great. But I'm going to tell you that until that day comes, I'm going to feel about that the same way God feels about that. Because this is not because of what they do to me personally. This is because they will be a declared enemy of our Heavenly Father and of His Word and of what He is trying to produce in us. And so we better decide which team we're on. I keep remembering that story of during the Civil War, and Granny was on the porch and she heard the enemy troops were coming down the road, and she grabbed up her broom and headed off the porch, and somebody said, Granny, you can't fight those soldiers with a broom. And she said, no, but I can show them whose side I'm on. Well, by the way, I didn't tell you which side she was on. I just said it because the important point is we better decide which side we're on. But here's this last verse in Revelation 19. And I saw heaven open, to behold a white horse, and he that sat upon him was called Faithful and True, and in righteousness. And if he isn't just, then he can't do this in righteousness. In righteousness he doth judge, and he does. He will judge the world and make war. And he will slaughter his enemies. When the Bible says the blood will run to the horse's bridle, this is not just a mild displeasure of the Lord against the ungodliness of men. So, while they publicly declare themselves to be an enemy of God, we will declare ourselves to be His sons and daughters. And that is going to constitute a conflict. And it won't mean anything to them until we start to impact Satan's policy of evil. And when we do that, then there is going to be a retaliatory effort made, mild in the beginning. Thank you, Lord, for that. But as we season ourselves and become soldiers, those attacks will increase, just like they did for the Apostle Paul, just like they did for Timothy, just like they did for Titus, and for those who have come before us. You do realize I don't say it like a club, but you know what? You're part of a group that is unlike any other group that's ever been formed in the world. And when you get up there, you'll be talking about things that only a few folks will be able to understand what that was really like. So this has all unfolded for that. I don't have any self-test for you at the end of this, because what I was trying to do is show you how all that came into play. All right, let's have a word of prayer and we'll be done. Father, thank you for your word and what it says to us. There's so much more in there than we have been able to look at. So many other places we could have gone, but did not. But as we begin to unpack everything that Paul has compressed into that opening statement in Romans 13:12, I pray that we're beginning to get the idea of what Satan is producing in this night of darkness, and what is being cooperated with by these wicked workers of iniquity. And we understand that those things have not abated or slowed down during this dispensation of grace, and that we're going to have your attitude toward everything. Not just this, but our attitude toward the other members of this assembly, and toward the saints, and toward our neighbor, and toward our enemy, and all those things that we've covered up to this place. We need your attitude for every one of those. And we pray, Lord, for that thing to be in us, and may it increase as we continue to go through this and be educated as your sons and daughters. And Lord, I love these folks, and I say it in front of them because of their commitment to sonship. They are more precious than I can say in words. And I wish there was a way that they could be shielded and protected. There's a part of me that wants that, but there's another part that realizes we're all going to have to become more than conquerors, and there's a glory associated with that, and there's something being put on display. And I realize it's a privilege to do that. And so, Lord, we do this, and we understand that this is your great wisdom to have fashioned all of this just this way.